Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I am joined today by my special guest, Scott Eastin. How are you today, Scott?
Hey, I'm great, Kevin. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Now, I had to put a call out on to LinkedIn, and I was asking for various people who are moonlighting, freelancing on the side, in addition to their full-time job. And Scott had reached out to me because Scott is in the unique position of helping people find those type of positions. And I thought it'd be interesting for Scott and me to talk about kind of the market right now and to help folks out there who might be listening who are interested in doing some work part-time, but we're always trying to solve that elusive question, how do I find my initial clients? And Scott makes that process just so much easier. So I'm looking forward to our conversation because I think
Of course.
folks will be able to learn a lot.
I hope so. Certainly hope so.
Scott, let's talk about you a little bit. What do you currently do? And then I want to kind of talk about your history
Sure.
and how you got to where you are
Sure.
today.
So I'm Scott Eastin. I'm the owner of Eastin IT Security. We are a specialty Azure and Microsoft consulting firm. And essentially we work with lots of Microsoft business partners and system integrators here in the US, helping them with their various Azure and Microsoft needs. We have a heavy specialty in security, migrations, SharePoint, those type of things. And essentially what I do is I bring in independent consultants, some who work for me full-time, others a lot do part-time work as well. And we go on and help those various clients with various projects. Some can be, full 40-hour a week type of engagement. Some are part-time for folks that have those full-time type of jobs. And really that's my job now. Is I was a former developer. Now really I spend my days essentially selling and marketing independent consultants to my clients and finding work for them.
Well, you had told me before we hit record that you used to be a full-time employee.
That's correct.
And you eventually made the jump to go independent yourself. Let's talk about that a bit. What was the catalyst to make you want to jump from full-time, quote, safe employment to the world of independent
Right.
consulting?
Well, but the headline here is it was desperation is probably the best way to put it. So long story short, I was working for a large beverage company here in Atlanta. I'd actually been a consultant for them for several years. And I went full time with that company because of some family situation and whatnot. So long story short, had been a great client of mine. I thought I knew the place, and there was a change in leadership, and the culture completely changed. It went from a great place to work to, at the end of the day, Kevin, I was extraordinarily unhappy. Just some crazy requirements about what was being asked of the teams, was often working till 3 a.m, several days and weeks in a row. And it was just a very unhappy existence. And I knew that something had to change, and coupled that with, going back in the way back machine. This was in the depths of the Great Recession. And long story short, I ended up answering an ad for a contract position for a unique skill set that I had. And I essentially rolled the dice, took a year-long contract where I had to travel from Atlanta to Virginia for a year, had my own apartment, 2 kids under 5, a wife, and that's literally how I got started. It wasn't any type of forethought. It was really more just, I was extraordinarily unhappy. I knew that something had to change. I wanted to work for myself. I had met lots of independent consultants, and it was a lifestyle that I was interested in getting to. And so I'd like to be able to tell you that there was a lot of forethought and market analysis, but it was just flat out, I was very unhappy and I knew something had to change.
And I've seen that numerous times before, where just a change in a person, it doesn't even have to be a whole leadership team. It can be just a change in a person, changes the entire dynamic of how a company works, how a set of teams work. And I've been there before. I've been that unhappy person where this used to be good.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's not good anymore.
Right.
And I wish it was good. And I think you're a real testament of like what we try to teach people with multi-threaded income is it's not get rich quick. It's not just bring in tons of extra money. It's insurance. It's insurance for these type of scenarios where you just are not happy doing what you're doing, or you get laid off, or something happens to the day job, and we want to feel safe with the day job, but reality is you're never safe with the day job.
And you're exactly right. And I think that's the whole thing that 2023 hopefully taught a lot of people in tech is that, you may have a great skill set, you may be a hard worker, you may be a great person, but at the end of the day, there are all sorts of things that happen in these large organizations where you'll get let go, and it could be no fault of your own. It could be a financial issue. It could be a market change. It could be a skill set, but you're always, it's like playing pro football or being a professional athlete is that you can be traded at any time. You can be cut at any time. And hopefully that lesson has been imparted to everyone in 2023.
I like to say the only job I've never been fired or quit from was working for myself.
Exactly.
As hard as I've tried, I haven't gotten my boss to fire me yet.
Exactly.
So Scott, I wanted to kind of role play with you a bit and say I'm in the position of a person with a full-time job. I'm comfortable with where I am. I'm comfortable with the money I'm making, but I want to start building up a little bit of a portfolio of side work.
Sure.
And I don't want to go through the effort of trying to find my own gigs, my own clients, because that's a lot of sending cold emails. It's a lot of just networking that I may or may not want to do.
Right.
But I find someone like you who is actively looking to put people in different places that might not need full-time help, but could use part-time help that I can offer. I come to you, Scott. What's the first thing you're going to ask me?
Well, really the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at your LinkedIn profile, and I'm going to just try to get a sense of, how put together you are. Are you producing content? Do you have a YouTube channel? Are you putting yourself out there? And really what I find, and this is a perfect case, is that I actually have an interview with a lady later today for some potential workforce, and I'll use her as a potential or a use case or a use case here is that looked at her skill set, found it through LinkedIn, looked at her profile, very put together. She put some effort in there. She has been producing some content, clearly is into the technical side and is putting herself out there as a professional, has a decent picture, nice banner on her LinkedIn profile, has her contact information in there. So it makes it easy for people like myself to vet her and determine, does she seem like she's trustworthy? Because ultimately at the end of the day, Kevin, we do technology, but what I sell is trust, because the real key to be successful, either as a part-time independent consultant or a full-time independent consultant, is that you have to be trustworthy, and people like myself and the end clients have to know that they can count on you. So having a great LinkedIn profile, or even a decent LinkedIn profile with a, semi-looking professional picture, is a great place to start. So those would be the first things that I would look for, is getting your LinkedIn profile together, and then having some content that you're putting out there as well. And you don't have to go crazy on the content, but at least doing something would be a good recommendation to get started.
Now, does having a limited or non-existent LinkedIn presence, does that completely eliminate me from even getting past your front door, or is there anything else I could do?
Really, the other way that people are introduced to me is through referrals. So, again, going back to my chain of trust, is that's the other thing that I look for, because in my position, it's landing clients and keeping clients is very, very competitive. And if there's any type of mess up on projects, it comes to me. I'm the ultimate backstop. So
Yeah.
my whole business philosophy, I'm lazy, right? I don't want to get those phone calls. If my phone isn't ringing, I assume that everything is great. And so again, I want to look for people who are trustworthy. So if you don't have a great LinkedIn profile or you don't have a LinkedIn profile, then it would have to be some type of direct referral to me from somebody that I trust. But if you're someone, I hate to say off the street, but you have no LinkedIn profile and you're reaching out to me and you don't know anyone in my network, then it's going to make it really hard for me to really take a chance is what, I ultimately have to do with new people. So that's why I'm always looking for that social proof, that validation, either through LinkedIn or some type of referral from someone who's worked with that independent consultant before.
That makes sense. It's not like we're trying to fill cashier positions at the
Right.
Walmart. It's very skilled tasks that you need. And if I'm coming to you and I don't have anything other than a resume that I made up that says I can do X, Y, and Z, there's no way for me to prove
Right.
to you that I can do the job that you need me to do.
Exactly.
And you're not the first one to say a good LinkedIn presence is critical.
Right.
And the fallback to that, knowing someone who can vouch for you by having a network.
Yes.
Uh,
Exactly.
I think you're episode 25 out of our entire stack of episodes. And I've heard that same line from numerous people. So anyone who's been listening for more than 2 episodes, get your LinkedIn in order. Yeah.
Exactly. And, and quite frankly, I'll take you through the search that I was doing the other day where I found this particular lady that I'll be talking to later today. I had some keyword searches in LinkedIn. It'll bring up a list of people that have that potential skill set. And I'm literally looking at the list of profiles that come up. If there's a picture, at a very minimum, have a picture of yourself that looks like it's, again, relatively professional, maybe no hats, look like you're going into the office, just some basics like that. But, I see a lot of people that don't have pictures, really haven't made any effort on their LinkedIn profile. And so I think the key takeaway here, and I'm not telling people you have to spend 20 hours a week on LinkedIn or, hire a graphic artist on your LinkedIn profile, but, get the iPhone, get someone to take a nice picture of you. You can find all sorts of free backgrounds for, filling out your banner and things like that, but put forward some effort in your LinkedIn profile, because quite frankly, that's the way that people like myself and corporate recruiters or other people out there are going to find you. They're in the industry. LinkedIn is literally people's first stops now.
Let's assume I get into your inbox and we're sitting down to have a conversation because I'm trying to do this part-time. What type of commitment in general should I expect or would you expect from me in terms of hours within a given week?
So I'll take you through some of them, or at least the way that we work with some people who are part-time. We've got a few people like that. And here's really what I look for is that number one is going to be responsiveness to my inquiries. I'm not asking people to respond in like 2 minutes, but it's typically, I may send you a text or drop you a phone call or a note. And the people that I really find do great in this industry, even on a full-time or part-time basis, are those who are responding to my messages or other recruiters' messages. So, perfect example is that there's a guy that does part-time work for us. I literally just called him up the other day. He took my call. I said, "Hey, here's what we have potentially coming up. Is this something where you think that you could help us out?" And he's like, "Yeah, no problem." Other times he may be in meetings like we all are. And, he'll get back to me in a couple of hours, not a couple of days, which I've seen, with other people. If you're not calling back in a couple of days or within a few hours, then, I assume it's not important to you. And then I go on to the next person in my Rolodex, because the way that I run my business is that I don't have just one person that can do, say, a SharePoint migration. I don't have one person that could do an M365 migration. I have like 5 or 6 trusted people at least in each technical silo. And the way that these deals happen is that they're normally time sensitive, where someone says, hey, do you have someone that could help me do X, Y, and Z? I want to try to get a call with that person with my client in the next couple of days. And so the way that I run the business is we want to be first to the goal line. And so that's why getting responses quickly is absolutely critical. And the people that are most successful in this business are the ones that are saying within a couple of hours, yeah, I can help out, or no, I can't. We just want a response.
People just don't want to sit around thinking that you're ghosting them. And I've done this numerous times through various things that have come across my desk, where someone says, hey, we're looking for someone to do X, Y, and Z. And I am perfectly capable of doing X, Y, and Z. I would be happy to do X, Y, and Z. But sometimes I just can't make it fit on my calendar. So I'll just quickly respond.
Exactly.
Thanks for thinking of me. I'm not available to do this, but please keep me in mind for future things.
That's perfect.
And
right. That's
what happens. Yeah. And what happens is a couple weeks, maybe a couple months later, I'll get an email from that same person going, hey, we have a new thing, X, Y, and Z. Turns out I have room on my calendar. Let's chat.
Yes.
But what you don't want to do is just ignore that email.
Yes.
And then that next time around, so that next opportunity, you're never going to get it, because that person is going to say, oh, Kevin didn't respond to me.
Right. Exactly.
So I'm not going to give Kevin the time of day.
Exactly.
Now, sometimes there are cases where you just miss an email.
Yeah.
But still respond to that email.
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
And just say, I am so sorry. I missed this email. We all know inboxes can get cluttered and it's easy to miss an email.
Sure.
But and it's not respond
exactly.
at all.
And it's the same thing with like text or voicemail, same type of thing, is that, I've had people ask, well, how do I keep on top of it? Or how do I respond quickly? And it's super simple. It's, hey, Siri, send so-and-so a text saying, hey, I'm not available right now, but thanks for thinking of me. It's not difficult. And quite frankly, it's a pet peeve of mine, because I'll have people come back to me in a few months and say, hey, do you have anything for me? I'm like, I thought you were kidnapped. I never heard from you, So.
Well, Scott, what other type of skills and attributes do you look for in successful part-time consultants?
Well, so then the other thing that's really big is self-management and just making sure that you're able to manage your schedule. So going back to the case study of the gentleman that we're working with right now, he's going to be doing some exchange work for us. And, the big thing then is he's got a full-time job. He's doing some work on the side. And basically now I'm depending upon him to make sure that he's managing his full-time schedule and then able to appropriately schedule meetings with the end client to meet with them during the business day to go ahead, gather requirements and get things lined up. One thing that I run into every now and then with new part-time independent consultants or people that are looking to do work on the side is that I'll often get asked the question, hey, can I do this work after hours? And I'll say 99% of the time, it's a no. They'll say, I can't take meetings during the day, but I want to do part-time work after hours. And at least in my business, I haven't found that that's even remotely viable, specifically because with a lot of the Azure and Microsoft consulting, you have to meet with teams, you have to meet with stakeholders during the day, give status reports, talk about requirements, all those type of things. And so, the other thing that if people are looking to do this on the side is you've got to make sure that you're able to manage your day where you have at least some bandwidth to take meetings and at least be visible so you can be in front of the clients. You may be doing the work after hours, but you've got to have at least some time during the day to be able to handle meetings and whatnot.
And it really depends on the client and the type of work you're doing. Because I've taken, I don't know how many contracts in the past where we've done all of our communication over email. So it doesn't matter what time I'm working on the project. And the worst case is we have to do a meeting.
Yes.
That was, all right, this just isn't being communicated right over email. Let's jump on a call. Let's knock this out. And those usually happen during the day.
Exactly.
But yeah, you always try to find that unicorn of people that don't like to do meetings, that just like to do email. That's my unicorn right there, because I get so, even like this call we had scheduled, I've been thinking about this for 2 days straight. Like, all right, I can't miss this call with Scott because it's on my calendar.
Right.
I just hate meetings with every ounce of my being.
Exactly. But and then really the final skill set here is just follow through with the clients, because at the end of the day, from my perspective, and I'm sure that anyone who's a professional, you want to leave that project or that individual with a good feeling about how you've helped them and the work that's been done. So, the ultimate follow through and making sure that you close the project up correctly, making sure that there are no loose ends, that customer service focus is something else that's really big also. So, really, if you're a full-time independent consultant or a part-time independent consultant, you really almost you definitely have to have a business mindset that you are solving a client's problem and not just putting cash into your pocket. And I think people that have that mindset of, I am ultimately helping the end client and focusing on their problem, are going to be the most successful in this business.
I always tried to distinguish for people the difference between a consultant and just a freelancer, where a consultant, like you're describing, that's a business-minded person who can go in and help a business solve a business problem.
Exactly.
And then you have freelancer who is more, this might sound derogatory, but it's a butt in a seat. It's a person who is just doing the work that they're told to do. And that's two different sets of skills entirely.
Right.
And I'm more in the line of what you're describing, the independent consultant. I'm going to come in and I'm going to help you with your problem in the best way possible. And that, because you don't know the solution, I don't know the solution. Let's figure out the solution.
Exactly.
Let's implement the solution.
Exactly.
Scott, we wanted to talk a little bit about the market as of January 2024, because I know these things fluctuate. Sure. So if I'm coming to you and as either a consultant or as a client, what's the market currently look like for folks you're placing, and what do you think the future demand is going to be?
Right. So I'll step back and just say 2023 in consulting in general was very tough, and in general in tech is tough as well. So we're all aware about the layoffs that happened at Microsoft, at Amazon, and a lot of the big technical players. And really what that did last year is that really put a big dent in the consulting market in general. So like a lot of the clients, this Microsoft business partners and system integrators that we work with, a lot of them had significant problems last year. Some did really well, but I would say in general, most of them were really steady state, where they were doing their best not to lay people off and try to keep the folks that they had as busy as possible. There were still a lot of layoffs in the Microsoft business partner community, and that's bled over into the independent consulting arena. And so what we saw last year is that there was probably a 20 to 30% drop in demand for independent consultants. We saw that ramp up coming into Q3 and into Q4 was fairly decent. And so in 2024, we're hoping for a rebound. We've had a lot of conversations with our end clients, and people are really, what's happening now is that the various end clients are being a little bit more conservative in hiring FTEs. And so now they're asking, well, we can probably do more of a virtual bench with trusted resources. And so we'll probably start to see more companies really leverage independent consultants either on a full or part-time basis going into 2024 to hedge their bets about hiring FTEs and taking on more overhead. So that's the forecast right now. But, again, things can change in February, but, right now we've seen a fairly decent start to 2024.
Well, sounds good. So that gives everyone a little bit of hope, right?
Exactly.
Everything that goes down has got to come back up eventually.
Exactly.
So keep your LinkedIn updated. And Scott, what's the best way to connect with you after they've listened to this episode?
Well, I'll go back to LinkedIn. You can certainly find me on LinkedIn, Scott Eastin on LinkedIn. My firm is Eastin IT Security. And certainly for anyone who's an independent Azure consultant or wants to do this full or part-time, I would certainly love to hear from you. Again, it's a great market to be in, even though I mentioned that it's been a little challenging lately. But Kevin, back to your point is that I think it's always good to have a plan B. You may be very happy where you are in your job and in your industry. But again, what we saw in 2023 is that things can change on a dime. And I think every professional out there should have a plan B because you just have no idea what's going to happen. And again, it's a great way to make a little bit of money on the side, in some cases, a lot of money on the side, and have a nice plan B for your career.
Scott, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Thank you, Kevin.
We'll have to have you back in a year or so. We'll just see how the market's going.
I definitely
and
would be glad to be back to give my forecast here.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening to the Multithreaded Income Podcast. We'll see you again next week.
All right.
Take care.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Multithreaded Income Podcast. I really hope that this podcast has been useful for you. If it has, please take a moment to leave a review wherever you get your podcast from. And don't forget, the conversation doesn't stop here. Join us on our Discord at mti.to/Discord. I've been your host, Kevin Griffin, and we'll see you next week. Cha-ching!